apologetics. You know what I'm saying?
I got
showing black dignity with the gospel.
Yeah.
And so what they do is, instead of really being in awe of the majesty of Christ and taking the passage for what it actually says, they make it about themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, look, see, his skin was like bronze. Oh, he looked like me. Oh, look, you know, Christ was a black man. Like, in their effort to scratch their ethnic, race-based itch, their identity itch, what they ended up doing is undermining the glory of God that's being conveyed through these passages. That's the real tragedy of this, at least this brand of Hebrew Israelism. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're literally undermining the glory of God to bring glory to themselves on the basis of ethnic identity.
Yeah, and this is how you know that this doctrine has less to do with the supremacy of Jesus and more to do with the supremacy of men, of black men, of IUIC, I guess I'll say men, right? But even within that, there's a hierarchy apparently, because it would be dark men first, and then light men would come like a close or distant second, depending on, you know, how light they are. You know, this is not. With all due respect, this is not a man who should be teaching any complexion of people
at all.
Yeah.
At all. That being said, I'm a little bit darker than both of y'all, so I feel I should be able to monopolize more of the conversation here for the rest of the.
I have 2 strikes. I'm light skinned and I'm a woman, so I'm.
Oh yeah, you definitely out. Yeah, it's a wrap. You definitely
don't even be listening to me.
Right. What did you say?
All right, I'm at the 418 mark. Here we go.
All right.
Oh, probably should share it first.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I was messed up. I caught myself.
Watch this.
Now, this is Taboo is a new book that just came out by John Entine. Why do blacks do so well at sports and why are we afraid to talk about it? Is now going to be explained by me in terms of brain size expansion. These are the variables that blacks have advantages of in sports if you read Entine's book. Things like 3 to 19% more testosterone, broader shoulders, narrower hips, that's significant. More muscle, less fat, greater bone density, higher center of gravity, faster knee-jerk reaction, higher percentage of fast twitch muscles, longer arms, and distal elongation of segments, which basically means that blacks have longer hands relative to forearms, relative to upper arms compared to white.
We just different.
All right.
All right. So
they're not like us.
Right. But not. No. Go back to the video.
Oh, my bad.
Go back. So now, right, we see this video talking about, you know. Now, what's interesting is you heard the beginning of the lecture, right? He's talking about the difference between the black body and the black skeletal system in comparison to brain size, right? I'm sure he heard that too, right?
Right.
And I know he did, because now what we're going to do. Now I want you to fast forward to the 13:43 minute mark, because he catches himself, but it still doesn't help him. So yeah, 13:43.
You know what? I didn't show it on the last video. At the very end of the video, as the Edomite is explaining how we have advantages physically, he said our brain was smaller than the white man's brain. So at the end, he had to throw a little shot like, yeah, but them niggas ain't smarter than us. But they know we are. That's why they keep us illiterate, dumb, and they don't teach us nothing. Go to the next video.
All right, pause. Right. So he knows he can't get away, because he knows somebody's going to actually look at the original lecture and realize what the argument is. Now he says, oh, he throws a little shot at the end. Well, let's see if that's the case, because I have the actual video that he was looking at. So if I can share my screen.
Oh, by all means.
BK coming through.
Coming through.
All right, so it's already queued up. All right, here we go. Listen to what he says.
Basketball and so on. Blacks have an advantage at sports because they have narrow hips and straight, energetically efficient thigh bones. But they have energetically efficient thigh bones and hips because they have smaller brains. The large brain had these cascading effects throughout the body that made locomotion just a little bit less efficient.
Did you hear what he said?
Gotta lie. This is your man.
This is what he said.
This your man, bro.
He
Oh,
said that,
man.
yeah, we got all these great, physical advantages, but that's because we have small brains.
Yeah.
Yo, come on, man.
So you can't tout your physical superiority without also including your intellectual deficiency. You can't, not with your source. This is your source.
And it's not a shot. It's part of the lecture.
Right.
It wasn't, oh, by the way, you got small brains. No, this is the lecture. We're proving that Black people have small brains. That's why they have such a great capacity at sports.
But so
That's the thrust of the whole lecture.
I'm gonna put even more in the BK. Like, so number one, you're right. It is part of the lecture, but not only that. If you listen to what he actually said, what's that speaker's name? The guy in the video, yeah, the scientist guy in the video.
Mm-hmm.
He actually provides the smaller brains as an explanation as to why,
right?
We have these other physical features.
Wow.
So it's not even just that it's part of the lecture. He's saying that the reason why we have these other features that benefit us is because of the smaller brains. So you can't separate then all the physical features from the smaller brain, because if if the brother from IUIC wants to accept all of these physical advantages, then his source is saying that the cause of those advantages is the smaller brain. So you got to take one with the other.
But let's drill down more.
Come on, bro.
Let's drill down more, because that lecture,
this is bad.
He references a book.
Uh-oh.
Right? And the book is Taboo Why Black Athletes Dominate Sports and Why We're Afraid to Talk About It by John Entine. Now, DEUX unearthed a very interesting tidbit about this particular author, and I'll let DEUX take it away. This is one of the books that he's written. DEUX.
Yeah, so I just thought, little old light-skinned woman me, I thought that why don't I just look at this author and see what else he's written? And so I found this book by Mr. Entine, named Abraham's Children, Race, Identity, and the DNA of the Chosen People by John Entine. Now, I just want to point out that this book was written the year before the other book that we just spoke about. Okay, so just the year before. I just want to read an excerpt from this book. Again, it's Gedaliah's source. He says, "My visit to Israel was a deeply personal journey spurred by the tragedy that DNA had visited upon my family. Although raised as a Reformed Jew," should I say that again?
I'm gonna put one of those explosion sounds right there. The kind of
although raised as a Reformed Jew, dutifully bar mitzvahed and confirmed, and even though I had majored in religion and philosophy in college, I had long since lost my faith.
Right.
My family tree disappears into the 19th century Eastern European diaspora. So it's difficult to trace the history of this wayward gene in my maternal line. The only thing that can be said with near certainty is that it's a tragic marker of our family's Jewish ancestry. Is there another slide?
I think that's.
I think that was it.
Yeah, that was it.
So again, I mean, to me, I'm glad that I decided to look at Mr. Entine's other books. This was comical to me that this man who not only is telling us that Black people's brains are smaller, the man who's telling us that Black people's brains are smaller, he's the beloved Jew. He's the beloved imposter. He's the beloved person who stole Gedaliah's identity.
Right.
That's who you're touting as your source.
But it gets worse.
Serious. I mean,
it gets worse.
Yeah. Oh, it gets worse. Okay,
it gets worse. Oh no, we're not done.
I just want to laugh with you.
Oh no. So we're gonna look at a review of this book. Now, remember the lecture is inspired and based on the book from John Entine talking about the taboo, right, in blacks in sports, right? So this is a review of this book by Paul Actor and Celeste Conduit from American Scientists, right? So let me get into it real quick. The crux of Entain's claim begins with his description of the resistance faced by scientists and even athletes who believe a genetic difference explains the gulf in athletic performances across races. He then provides a detailed analysis of Black athletic dominance across several sports and across countries. An account of Kenya's production of nearly all the world's top middle distance runners is central. The opening chapters thus outline the problem that Entine claims to address. Black athletes dominate some of the most visible sports, but societal norms prohibit explanations of this success based in scientific analysis of physiology. The bulk of the book blends historical anecdotes about the intersection of race, science, and sports with genetic research underwritten by a supposed objectivity of observation. Entain refutes deterministic environmental explanations for athletic superiority. Too often, he argues, such accounts completely ignore the contribution of genes and our ability to dunk a basketball, run long distance, or elude a defensive back. But Entain goes too far in the opposite direction. Although he occasionally gives lip service to the idea that nature and nurture both contribute to athletic ability, Entain ultimately dismisses substantive consideration of environmental factors as ideological or self-censoring. He leaves the impression that there are clear racial differences in athletic abilities and that all such differences are traceable to genes. Regrettably, Entain's version of genetics constitutes a caricature of that science. His account of the debate over the quote out of Africa hypothesis is lopsided and reflects the hastiness and sloppiness that also bedevils the proofreading, organization, and argumentative structuring throughout the book. Ultimately, Einstein takes what may be a kernel of truth, that there are very small differences in frequencies of particular physical structures in some geographically localized populations, and distorts it into the claim that, quote, blacks are universally better athletes because of their genes. The quotation marks are intended to differentiate between Einstein's notion of biological homogeneity and our use of the terms of their social utility. The flaws of this larger claim are illustrated by Entain's use of Tiger Woods as an example of physical superiority of black athletes. Einstein admits Tiger Woods' multiracial origins, but then lumps him back into mythical racial group called blacks. Throughout, Entine plays fast and loose with categories in this fashion. He proves that a local group of Kenyans dominate middle distance running, then uses this to make generalized statements that, quote, blacks are better athletes. Sports where blacks do not dominate, swimming, cricket, gymnastics, polo, are quickly dismissed on grounds of nurture or environment. For instance, blacks don't have access to polo ponies. But in either case, the difference somehow is treated as support of his claim that blacks are innately superior athletes. Entain's claim is thus severely distorted. Localized differences in genetics might make some contribution to patterns of success in sports, but such differences are not summable in the social categories of black and white, and they do not efface environmental inputs. To succeed in a given sport, athletes of all geographic backgrounds must still train hard, think hard, have facilities, receive good coaching, and live in a culture that values cricket, tennis, basketball, or boxing. Additionally, at the elite level, the physical potential for greatness is so rare among all populations that geographic differences do not swamp the significance of individual variation. Right? So, and this is from Scientific American.
All right.
Right? Like this guy, he's playing fast and loose with the terminology, with the data, because he still wants to, he's trying to be as non-white supremacist in his white supremacist view.
Yeah.
Right. It's white supremacist light.
Right.
That's diet white supremacy going on here.
Right. And also, hold on. All right, just one more review. Let me skip here. All right, it says here, this is from Ben Carrington, is co-author of Race, Sport, and British Society. This is, again, another review. It is necessary to correct a number of errors and falsehoods in John Entine's Breaking the Taboo. Entine claims that it is an uncontroversial scientific conclusion that the achievements of Black athletes can be explained by genetics. Nothing could be further from the truth. The available scientific evidence is contradictory and ultimately inconclusive. Few credible biologists or geneticists give any credence to Entine's claims in his book, Taboo: Why Black Athletes Dominate Sports and Why We're Afraid to Talk About It. Entine's suggestion that he has tried to decouple the link between racial intelligence and physicality would be the book's only saving grace. But again, this claim is false. In fact, it has only served to strengthen the dubious statistical correlation central to white supremacist doctrines for over a century.
Wow.
Man.
Wow.
So he's using overtly white supremacist propaganda to inspire the greatness of Black people.
Wow. Mind you, matter of fact, let's rewind it back, right? Because not only that, he's using white supremacist propaganda that he got from a reformed Jew, right? A European Jew, which he would probably say is a Khazar or something along those lines. Because obviously Hebrew Israelites, the majority of them, certainly IUIC, believe that the current occupants of Israel are imposters, that they're the synagogue of Satan, so on and so forth. They believe all that, but that's your source, though. That's Gedaliah's source of white supremacist indoctrination that he's now peddling back to the Black community.
And he can't fawn ignorance, because he tells you, he also says in the lecture that we have small brains.
Right.
Why use the source then, buddy?
Why use the source?
Man.
Come on, bro.
It's like, are you really for Black people? Are you really for Black people? Like, really? Because that lecture is not for Black people. That doesn't help us at all.
I mean, they claim that the Christians like us are bringing the Catholic Church and white, the white man's religion into the community. That's one of their big claims about us. But I'm like, bro, we actually have you on record for bringing a Jewish white supremacist ideology directly to the Black community you claim to be about. Man. So you've been caught red-handed. That's crazy to me. That's crazy to me.
It's not the message that you thought it was.
Nope.
Nah, this is not it. This ain't it. This ain't it. Come on, man. We got a couple more clips to go. Did y'all want to say something more on that, or y'all good?
No, that was good.
Oh man. Good job, BK. Good job, DEUX. All right.
Darker skin, count yourself lucky.
Pause. You hear this? You heard what he said? He said, if you got darker skin, somebody give a round of applause for that thing right there. If you got darker skin, consider yourself lucky. Watch this. Give me the book of 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 23. 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 23. So for all you brothers and sisters that feel subconscious about your dark skin, or you let people make fun of you and call you blackie and whatever, man, consider yourself lucky. Because when you get older and they get older, you're going to look way better. 2 Samuel 7, 23.
The book of 2 Samuel chapter 7 and verse 23. And what one nation in the earth is like thy people?
Read.
Even like Israel, whom God went to redeem for a people to himself, and to make him a name, and to do for you great things and terrible for thy land, before thy people, which thou redeemest to thee from Egypt, from the nation and their God.
So the Lord said that he chose us out of the midst of another nation. We are not regular. We are different. Jeremiah 14 and 2. No, Song of Solomon 1 and 5, man.
Actually, you can stop it right there. Stop it right there.
Song of Solomon chapter 1.
Right? Because they're different. God chose us because we're different, right? Well, yeah, I guess. But let's see what scripture says. Why that's the case. So, all right. Adam, if you could read Deuteronomy 7, starting in verse 6.
I gotta lean in, man. Actually, if DEUX could read it, I'm having trouble seeing right now.
No problem.
Yeah.
Deuteronomy 7:6-8. For you are a people holy to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his treasured possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. It was not because you were more in number than any other people that the Lord set his love on you and chose you, for you were the fewest of all peoples. But it is because the Lord loves you and is keeping the oath that he swore to your fathers, that the Lord has brought you out with a mighty hand and redeemed you from the house of slavery, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt.
All right, Moses is reminding Israel right before they go into the promised land that the reason why you was chosen is not because you're great and mighty, but God has an obligation to uphold his covenant that he made with Abraham. That's the reason, right?
That's right.
Deuteronomy 9. That's right. Deuteronomy 9, verse 5. Dean, you could be so kind.
Yes, sir. Let me start. Not because of your righteousness or the uprightness of your heart are you going in to possess the land, but because of the wickedness of these nations, the Lord your God is driving them out from before you, and that he may confirm the word that the Lord swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob.
Right. The reason why you've been created and the reason why you're about to take this land is not because you're huge and mighty, and it's not because of your righteousness and uprightness of heart. It's two reasons. One, these other nations are wicked, and God upholds his oath to Abraham. Right? That's it. Clearly, that's what Moses is telling Israel.
Right.
It's not because you did anything amazing, and it's not because you're great in number. It's that God keeps his promises to Abraham.
Yeah.
That's why.
Right. Right.
That's it.
But see, but there again, I go back to the point I said before. Like when you're just, determined to exalt yourself, you can't do that without eventually undermining the glory of God. That's what's going to happen. So now he's talking about a passage and trying to apply it. Oh, we're so great, because we're special people. God brought us out. When really what the scripture attests to is that God brought you out because he's faithful.
Yeah.
Because of God's faithfulness to Abraham, to keep his promises, and also to show God's glory. It's not because y'all were so magnificent and great and numerous in number. Like, no, it's like God takes the foolish things of this world to confound the things of the wise. It's the same principle, right? And so they're taking something from the scripture that ultimately should exalt God, and they're making it about themselves. And in doing so, they're undermining the glory of God. It's unmistakable, man. It's unmistakable.
Yeah. BK, can you go to those slides about the skin thickness? I just wanted to to say a few things about that. Let me just say this, that as BK gets that there is no consensus on this idea of, you can look this up and you'll find two different opinions on this. People will say that Black people do have thicker skin than their white counterparts, and then you'll have sites that will also say that the reverse is true. So let me just go ahead and read this. This was a study that was done called Caliper Measured Skin Thickness is Similar in White and Black Women. Background. Although race is a determinant of bone density in women, it is not known whether it is also a determinant of skin thickness. Objective. We attempted to determine whether skin thickness, bone density is greater in Black than white women. Methods. A cross-sectional study of skin thickness in 86 white and 40 Black women ages 22 to 69 years was performed in the dermatology and medicine clinics at a university hospital and a local nursing care facility. Subjects included patients and their accompanying friends, family, staff, and nursing care facility residents, 86 white and 40 Black women. Let's go right to the conclusion at the bottom. Conclusion. Can you go back to that previous screen there? Okay, thank you. Unlike bone density, there is no significant difference in non-sun exposed skin thickness between white and Black women. And then
Next.
Yeah, next. Black skin, and this is another source. I'm sorry, this is a different source. So the previous source was from the Journal of the, hold on, let me get this right. I want to get this right. So if people want to look it up, they can. But that was from, hold on one moment. The journal, what I just read was from the Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology. Okay. The Journal of the American Academy of Dermatology is saying that there is no difference in skin thickness between Black women and white women. Here's another source. This is a doctor who specializes in skin of color. Okay. Black skin isn't thicker than white skin, even though, according to a 2016 study, 40% of medical trainees nationally believe that that statement is true. This is the opening. Salvo Tiffany Mayo, MD, shared with second-year medical students in her recent Skin of Color lecture presented during the students' musculoskeletal and skin module. Mayo, an assistant professor in the Department of Dermatology and course director, said this figure is eye-opening for the students. These study participants were their age, had similar training, and were as intelligent as they are, but they had these biases that come from who knows where, because there is no science to support this idea, Mayo said. Beginning here helps make the information relevant to our students and help open a conversation on examining biases and how the biases we have can affect how we treat patients. And I just want to be clear, that there's more to this. This goes a little bit deeper. I think I'm good with the slide, BK. It goes a little bit deeper because, again, secondary to white supremacy, there is this notion that Black people had thicker skin so they could endure more pain than their white counterparts. It was okay to punish Black people and to subject them to a level of pain that wasn't received by white people. Why? Because their skin is thicker anyways. And so I just want to say that is the underlining thought that runs through this idea. But again, I will say that there's no consensus. If you look it up, you'll find people on either side of the boat here. So I just want to point that out.
Yeah, it's actually, interestingly enough, the skin game is a tough game to play, when you're dealing with race. Like, if you look at Thomas Jefferson, actually, he wrote a treatise on slavery, basically just giving his justifications as to kind of where he stood on slavery and why he believed that Africans were of not the same caliber as Europeans. And one of the reasons that he gave is that he believed that Africans had bile in their skin, which made them darker, Now, somehow he managed to set that consideration aside in order to sleep with Sally Hemings. But that notwithstanding, that's just the inconsistency of how races get down. And it's so once you start getting into this game about skin color, you know what I mean, then I just think inevitably you're going to end up in a place that certainly does not reflect what Genesis 1:26 and 1:27 has to say, that all human beings are made in the image of God.
Yeah.
It's just really that simple. The fact of the matter is, biologically, just to put it simple, you don't have different human families, and you don't have like these sharp distinctions between so-called races in the way that we treat it in society. Like, the way that we use white and Black is more so of a social construction. It's a social construct than a biological one. And so in some ways, racism is more real than race itself in some ways, just to kind of use an analogy, if I was walking across the border of America and Mexico, you're not going to cross over the border and see like some sort of line that says you're crossing into Mexico, not naturally anyway. There's no natural marker that says you're now in Mexico. So in the same way that between nations, there are these natural markers that show, one where one country ends and one country begins. Likewise, when you look at the genetic code, if you're just looking at the DNA strand, you're not going to come to a point where there are like these sharp markers. Okay, that now you got a black person, quote unquote, or you got a white person. That's not how it works, you know. And so that's why and Dina, you could probably speak to this more so than I could, but in the literature, this concept of race has become, it's kind of unwieldy. It's problematic because it doesn't really map onto what we can observe in nature itself, because we're constantly running up against this conflict between biological realities of mankind being just this one spectrum of differentiation along the way versus the social construct of race.
Yeah. Genetically, humans are far more similar when you consider DNA and nucleotides and we're far more similar than we are different. It's astounding. What does that point to? A creator, a common creator for all of us. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. All right. So cool. I got us at the 19-minute mark.
Of my curse.
He called these people right here the people of my curse. They the only people on the earth without melanin, y'all. God said, no, y'all thinking they something high and mighty. No. Go back and read my word again. Repent and keep the commandments. I'll show you wisdom. They are the people of my curse. Now, Romans 9:22.
There we go again.
Yeah, I'm not going to say, sorry, BK, did you have something to say about this or?
No.
Okay. I don't have much to say about this. I've said this so many times in between videos that I've done with you, BK, the claims of the conscious community. I've said this so many times. Every human being has melanin. To say that white people do not have melanin shows your, did I use ignorance before? We'll say ignorance. It shows your refusal. It actually shows your refusal to acknowledge truth. Okay. Everyone, including a segment of the albino population, produces melanin. Okay. Melanin is something that is ubiquitous, meaning it's everywhere. It's present in many living things, animals, plants, fungi, bacteria. The way that animals get their color, you know what it's by? It's melanin. Skunks, cockroaches have melanin.
Dang.
It is not a unique feature of only human beings, and it's not a unique feature of only Black and brown people. Can you bring up those photos now, BK? Okay. In fact, if you want to rejoice in melanin levels, let's see some people who have very high melanin levels, maybe some even more than Gedaliah. I would think these men I think they're stronger than Gedaliah is light skinned compared to these two. Guess what?
Sure.
These are Indians, okay, who have very marked amounts of eumelanin. The eumelanin produces the black and brown tone in us, in animals. These are not Israelites. They're not on the 12 tribes chart. They'd be on the other nations chart. But if we're going to go with melanin being some type of advantage for humans, then by all rights, we would have to include these gentlemen. Go to the next slide. Again, I bet you this man, that first picture, I bet you he's older than he looks. I bet you he's aging well because he has melanin.
Hey, black don't crack for real.
It's not cracking. And then we have this other gentleman here with the great in his rear. These men are not Israelites. These men are people that IUIC would condemn to slavery in the kingdom, but they have more melanin than your Hispanic Israelites.
Wow. Especially that dude on the left. You can go back for a second, which I find it fascinating with the white beard and hair and all that. Like, that actually looks like some of the depictions that you see in IUIC's memes and the pictures that they put online. It actually looks like one of those characters right there.
Yeah.
Like you said, this guy is Indian, as in from India. You know,
right? Yeah. And again, I'm just including an image of a beautiful black Indian woman who again has high levels of the melanin that is being touted as only belonging to somehow to Israel. She would not be on the chart either.
They messing up, man.
Yeah.
It just, you can't be consistent with this theology, bro. It just gets from bad to worse.
It's hard.
From bad to worse.
Yeah, because he hasn't been emphasizing. I mean, if it would be beneficial to them to change their sound bites and to change their talking points. He hasn't been designating Israelite melanin. He's just been saying melanin, but melanin is melanin.
Right.
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 So again, to your point, Adam, it's just the doctrine doesn't work. There's points in the doctrine that don't work for reality. You either have to fudge reality or ignore reality to make it work.
That's a fact. That's a fact. And that's a dead giveaway from a worldview. If you have a worldview that's not internally consistent, meaning the beliefs of the worldview are clashing with themselves, then that's a red flag that there's something wrong with the worldview. Likewise, another red flag is if your worldview, if your beliefs don't align with reality, if you keep finding yourself having to compromise reality in light of your beliefs, that's another red flag that there's something wrong with your worldview. These are just basic worldview critiques. Worldview critiques, man. I think we got one more clip.
One more.
Finally, after more than 70 years, a measure of justice for the family of Henrietta Lacks, whose cells were taken without her family's consent and led to groundbreaking medical discoveries. Here's Jake Ward.
Henrietta Lacks is inside all of us in treatments and vaccines her cells made possible. And tonight, her family is finally being compensated for her contributions.
Such sacrifice that she had to give of herself that benefited all the world.
Lacks died of cervical cancer in 1951 at Johns Hopkins, where, in a racially segregated ward, doctors cut out a sample of her cancer cells without her permission. The cells, nicknamed Gila, were the first to grow well in a lab and are now...
Pause it. Y'all remember what I referenced earlier about the hospitals. You see this? Malpractice. Now, all of a sudden, all of her organs and her stem cells and whatnot is used today. They do this stuff on purpose. Go ahead, play it. They know we got the God gene. Go ahead.
Bedrock of modern medicine. Her family sued multi-billion-dollar Thermo Fisher Scientific in 2021, saying the company, quote, made staggering profits by using the Gila cell line, although it, quote, has known that Gila cells were stolen from Ms. Lacks. The family settled for an undisclosed amount Monday.
Yeah, I know. They pause it. And that money can't live up to how much money they made. They said, look, how much I want? 10 million? That's chump change to them. But we poverty stricken. So we like, yeah, we'll take that 10. But look how much money they made over the years. Go ahead.
Pleased the case is resolved, but had no further comment.
Today on her 103rd birthday, we got justice. Her legacy is in good hands. Our family is standing together inside.
Paul, look at Ben Crump. Look at that nigga. Anytime some BS go down, he pop up. He love that money, don't he? Anyway, drop him because if I say something I shouldn't say. All right, so y'all see we got the God gene. It was in our sister Henrietta Lacks. It's in all of us, and they know that, y'all. We're not regular. We are not the average people, okay? We are the sons and daughters of the living God. What explanation?
Okay, so let me just say a few things about this. Maybe not in the order that he brought it up, but let me just talk about this God gene for a bit here. So, unless he is redefining, and he apparently he is, but he has to redefine the term, the phrase God gene to fit his narrative. The God gene is something totally different, right? But he has to misconstrue it. So the God gene is this, it's a God gene hypothesis, actually. At best, it's this theory, but it's currently, I think most people would agree that it's a hypothesis that says that that religion and spirituality is hardwired into us via our DNA. Okay. So the God gene comes from a materialistic worldview, which says that all of our processes, all of our functions, what we do, how we act is the result of our chemical processes. There's no spontaneity. There's no everything is determined biologically by how we're wired. And so the God gene says that religion, people who have belief in a God, people who are religious, people who are spiritual, the reason that they are that way is because they're hardwired to be so. Okay, this is a position that not even Gadaliah would hold to, but that's what he's talking about. I mean, that's what the God gene is. I don't know if he's aware of this. I don't know if he's aware that he's co-opting a term that actually isn't already has been in use and means something totally different. Henrietta Lacks did not have the God gene. And for anyone, let me just say this, for anyone who hasn't read or isn't aware of the Henrietta Lacks story, it's an amazing story. I do agree with Gadaliah in that there's no amount of compensation that can be given to the family, no amount of apologies that can be given for what was done to her. Now, but Gadaliah, you don't have what Henrietta Lacks has. She had cervical cancer. And she had what we call an immortal cell line. So, you know, just to be quick and to be very superficial, essentially the benefit of her cancerous cells is that they continued to replicate in the laboratory. Her cells are back then to now are still replicating. Okay, very different from stem cells. These guys, both gentlemen, kind of made allusions to stem cells. No, they're not stem cells. Stem cells are something totally different. Stem cells are cells that have the ability to become other cells. They have the ability to differentiate into other types of cells. That's not what Henrietta Lacks. That's not what HeLa cells are. So that's all I'll say about that. But I just wanted to say that, you know, to co-opt this idea of the God gene for yourself because you want to be like Henrietta Lacks is I don't know if it's not a disrespect to her. You're just co-opting from her at this point. You don't have the God gene. You don't have the God gene. You're religious. But that's all I'll say about that.
No, I mean, that's helpful in breaking down, again, because I think in the absence of knowledge, it's so easy to just throw terms around. You know what I mean? God gene this, God gene that, or whatever. But it is important. Yeah, again, this is your area of expertise. So to be able to speak to that in terms of what would actually be reputable in the field, you know, I think is important that people understand that. The other piece is too, I just want to say that, again, of course, Henrietta Lacks. I mean, that's it's a powerful story. You know, I've got the book around here somewhere. It might be in this bookcase in terms of everything that went down there. But I think that the gentleman who made allusions to, see, that's what I was talking about. That's why with the hospitals they be killing us because they want our genes. On one level, I can sympathize with that because the Tuskegee experiments, that was real. Henrietta Lacks, that really happened. Like there have been real systemic injustices. Just people have been taken advantage of by the system, particularly Black and brown people. Have been taken advantage of in certain instances to where I get the fear, I get the suspicion, but at the same time, we all need to have, we can't abandon critical thinking skills just because there have been heinous injustices done in the past. Like it's still our responsibility to use our good sense today, with each situation so that we don't become, spooked out every time, and just start living by irrational fears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being, cautious, but I think that what he's talking about rises to the level of just irrational fears. It's not true that, Black people should just all stay away from the hospital because they're trying to harvest your organs. That's not true.
Right.
And I think that I think somebody in his position is really irresponsible, because you might have somebody who really needs care and now they're not going to go because they've listened to him peddle just conspiracy theories that he can't substantiate. That's actually kind of dangerous, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's funny how, a lot of these things overlap with other communities within the overarching conscious community, right? Because I actually did a video recently dealing with the God gene, but with someone else who would not be considered Hebrew Israelite at all. This is more, I guess, super cosmic, woke, comedic kind of adjacent type of vibe. So anyway, this idea, this concept of the God gene, where does it come from, right? So social biologist Edward O. Wilson once declared religious belief to be, quote, the greatest challenge to human social biology and his most exciting opportunity to progress as a truly original theoretical discipline. In other words, Wilson admitted that belief in God is a fundamental challenge to the theory of evolution, since evolution cannot explain why this belief could be so widespread, so powerful, and so closely tied to human existence. Now, Dean Hammer, a geneticist at the National Cancer Institute at the National Institutes of Health, claims to have found the genetic explanation for a belief in God, a God gene that provides an evolutionary explanation for faith. Right? So the God gene is about trying to find a biological reason for why we, are so drawn to the supernatural. Mm-hmm. That's what the God gene is referring to. Not what he's talking about. That's not what the God gene is referencing. It's trying to provide an evolutionary explanation for faith.
Yeah.
And I'll just stop there. I could go more into it, but this will be enough to show.
No, I mean, I think the point has been made. I mean, I'm glad you brought that out. Both of y'all brought that out about the God gene, because I mean, so here's the thing. What I think about, and this kind of gets into the philosophy of it, but I think a common feature, whether it be Hebrew Israelism or, like you pointed out, Alfredo, some of these beliefs you'll find amongst other folks who are not Hebrew Israelites. Maybe they're Kemetic, maybe they're this or that. But when you're dealing with the conscious community and also the Hebrew Israelite community, I think a common feature is that many times they have not actually thought out the implications of their claims and their worldview, right? Because you're dealing with people who often are consuming information on the internet, and they're just trying to it's like a confirmation bias type situation where they're trying to prove a point to themselves and to their audience, and they're not actually thinking through the implications, right? So if you accept this notion of a God gene, then you would have to determine that your own beliefs are produced by something genetic. There is no reality to it, right? That literally undermines your whole worldview, right? Yeah. If you accept, going back to the beginning, if you accept the, Entine's theory about, why Black people have these physical advantages that they have, well, now you have to also accept his reasoning for that, which is that we have smaller brains, right? And so that's the lower capacity. So now you're having to undermine the personhood of Africans and people of color because you accept the part that you wanted to accept. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, what happens is when you have an underdeveloped worldview, then there are basic questions about reality, about personhood, about, the existence of God, about morality. The foundation of your worldview is going to be shaky because, again, it's just underdeveloped. You haven't actually thought it through.
Yeah.
And so I think, to be honest with you, and this is just another, for me, first and foremost, I'm about preaching the gospel. That's number one. But also, I do believe that the deceptions that are gaining traction in the African American context and the minority context, they also have a right here, right now negative impact, in so much as we are being saturated in our community with bad ideas that are just rooted in falsehood. And I think that it holds us back as a community. And so to me, the most anti-black thing you can do, well, I'd say among the most anti-black things you can do is to peddle falsehoods in our community. And that's exactly what's going on here, right? And we need to call this stuff out. Like whether you convert to Christianity tomorrow or not, like just really think about what you're doing. You're literally hurting your own community. We're dealing with a guy right now and get that. I keep messing his name. How do you pronounce it again? I'm not even trying to be funny, but Gedaliah. Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, I'm not even trying to be funny with that. Gedaliah. We're dealing with a guy who's literally peddling white supremacist ideology that he got from a Jewish person that he would say is not even a real Jew. And, with all the rest, I mean, it's just, come on, man. At some point, you had to stop and think, like, if and I go back to your point, D-New, if I'm a black man, right, in IUIC right now, and one of our notable teachers is peddling white supremacy, telling me that I'm weaker than some of my Hebrew Israelite brethren because of my skin tone, at some point, just as a man, at some point, you had to be able to look in the mirror and be like, man, this ain't it. This can't possibly be what God has for me in my life. It can't possibly be. So I don't know. That's all I got to say. Do y'all have any like kind of closing reflections or whatever? I'm just blown away by this whole thing, man.
I mean, again, right? We said it. Oh my God, we've been saying this, and I guess it's worth repeating. The answer to white supremacy is not black supremacy.
That's right.
It's just not, because it's very telling, because the issue isn't supremacy. It's who has the supremacy. Mm-hmm. The issue isn't slavery. Slavery in itself to them is not bad. It's who gets to do the enslaving.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't matter what sources they use as long as it fits their agenda. That's why he was comfortable hearing the lecture, knowing what the lecture was about, and still trying to use it to incorporate what he thought was an upliftment of black people. Because in its core, it's still about supremacy. It's about, a theological game of who's the king of the mountain. Right? That's what they're on. And they don't care what propaganda they use as long as they somehow, in their minds, get to be the king of the world. So
right. And that's not the example of Jesus. Jesus was clear that in like the conquering Christ achieves his ends not by taking on the world's means. He does it in a way that they could have never fathomed. They could have never seen. He straight up said to Pilate, it's like, look, for real, I could roll up here with 12 legions angels, for real. I could really pull up. Like we could really get it popping right now. You know what I'm saying? But nevertheless, he didn't come to establish a kingdom on this earth. That's not what he was on, right? And so we always have to be suspicious and cautious about groups who take on the weaponry of the oppressor and the weaponry of Satan ultimately in order to achieve their ends. That can't possibly turn out good. It can't possibly be of God. Dee, you want to say something as we close out?
No, well, if we're going to close it, I just want to close out with this. You alluded to it. This is the first time I heard you say this quote, I thought was so good, and it's so applicable to this show tonight, but it's just this good quote that you cannot build a strong community on weak ideas.
That's right.
And there's many ideas in this, I think it's a 29-second video that is extremely weak. And so if you're going to be for your people, be for your people. Teach them rightly, teach them with integrity, vet your sources, actually look into the things that you're giving to your people. If you're going to quote a man, look into the man. Oh, this man, you quoted a Jewish man. I mean, that's going to open up a whole lot of problems for your doctrine. And so I'm just saying this, you can't build a strong community, including a Hebrew Israelite community, on weak ideas.
It's a fact. But hey, that's why we're here though, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think these shows are important because for the average Christian who maybe they haven't encountered things like this, and maybe they don't understand why, the urban apologetics community is so adamant about standing against things like this, because it has real world implications. You know, it really does, both eternal and right here and now. Like, we're not just haters or something like that, you know, it was just people who don't have anything else to do with our time. We love these folks. Like, we love our community. We want to exemplify the love of Christ to everybody that we can, ultimately for the preaching of the gospel, but then also for their flourishing here, you know. So we're going to keep confronting bad ideas. You can't, like you said, you cannot build a strong community on a foundation of weak ideas. So as long as that's going to be, you know, as long as those weak ideas are being peddled to the community, we're going to be here. This is what we do. You know, so anyway, with that being said, y'all hit that like button, subscribe button, share this, all that good stuff. Thank y'all for everybody who's been rocking with us on the new show format. Thank you for all the positive feedback. We're going to be right here every single week, man, bringing y'all that new content, and shorts, videos, all that kind of stuff in between. We got a whole lot to come. But, you know, with all that said, love God, love people, take care of the things that God blesses you with. Peace.